There's a whisper that travels through time. It doesn't speak in words, nor does it scream in sound. It expresses itself through patterns, recurrences, pulses. It's in everything you see, yet it cannot be seen. It's in everything you feel, yet it's never taught. It's the invisible code behind coincidences, gut instincts, that sense of déjà vu when you're sure you've been somewhere before, even if you haven't. This code isn't a riddle to be solved with your mind. It's a vibration meant to be remembered by your body. And it has a structure, a secret design that's always been there even when you didn't know what to call it. Today, we awaken that memory. From your first breath, you were already surrounded by it. When you opened your eyes for the first time, light passed through 3 layers of your retina, processed through 7 regions of your brain, forming an image that was already being felt before it was seen. You were born feeling more than you saw, knowing more than you explained. And over the years, or rather with the buildup of layers between you and this original language, you were taught to doubt what was most real, your intuition. That silent knowing that told you when something was right, even without evidence. That twist in your stomach, that unexplained shiver, this code lives in that space. Reality, contrary to what you were taught, isn't something static waiting to be discovered. It's a living organism, constantly responding to how you position yourself. It's not a blank page, it's a flexible mirror. And the reflection it gives you depends mainly on 3 invisible pillars: how you perceive, the emotion you sustain, and the meaning you give. This isn't just philosophy, it's vibrational architecture, a creation mechanism that doesn't need language, only coherence. And when those 3 elements align, something happens, something that traditional science still hesitates to explain, but ancient cultures knew without a doubt. The outside world changes when you change from within. But what exactly is this within? It's not just thought, not just feeling. It's the combination of vibrational memory, hidden intention, and active presence. It's the field of information you carry even when you're silent. That's why 2 people can do the same thing, yet one gets results and the other doesn't. It's not about what they do, but where they do it from. It's not about the gesture. It's about the field. The code responds to the field. And your field is sculpted by layers much deeper than the stories you tell others. It's made of what you believe when no one is watching, of what you feel when the noise stops, of what you accept as truth when fear knocks. There's a woman, let's call her Clara, who grew up in a coastal village with very few material opportunities. From an early age, she was told life was hard and dreams were dangerous. She grew up believing that wanting anything beyond survival was selfish. But Clara had something no one else could see: a pulse, an inner current that didn't die, even when everyone told her it wouldn't work. At 27, she decided to ignore their advice and began painting on scraps of wood. It wasn't a plan, it was an impulse. Within months, people started buying her artwork, not because it was technically perfect, but because it carried something they couldn't explain. It was her field vibrating through the colors. Clara didn't beat logic. She tuned into the code, and the code responded. You don't have to paint. You don't have to drop everything. You just have to ask yourself, what part of me have I been ignoring out of fear of seeming strange? Because that's where the starting point lives. The fold where your original frequency hides. The key isn't doing more. It's vibrating differently. When you shift your foundational vibration, not through mental effort but emotional reconnection, the field begins to rearrange. Coincidences intensify. Time seems to stretch. People disappear from your life. Others return. And suddenly, it feels like nothing is being forced. You're simply responding to the intelligence of the field that's always been there, just waiting for you to remember who you were before you forgot. But to access this, you must pass through a veil. The veil of programmed identity. That character you think you are, built from other people's voices, from school, culture, spiritual authority, inherited wounds. That you've defended is often nothing more than a sum of emotional defenses worn to avoid more pain. And the code doesn't respond to the character. It responds to the real vibration behind the mask. When you begin to release that armor, even piece by piece, the field begins to meet you, and life begins to dance to a new choreography. Not because it gets easier, but because it gets more honest. You don't have to understand everything right now, or know every step. You only have to recognize that something inside you already knows, and begin to listen to it with less judgment and more presence. Because the field doesn't respond to speed, it responds to depth. And sometimes, to dive deep, you must first become still. You may have never heard it phrased this way, but the way you feel things isn't just a reaction, it's a creation. Emotion is not a side effect of life. It's the vibrational clay from which life molds events around you. And that changes everything, because if what you feel vibrates before you speak it, then the universe is already responding to your emotion long before you take action. This isn't cheap mysticism, it's subtle physics. Field coherence. Your heart informing reality of what's next. And this is the most overlooked aspect of how reality is shaped. Emotion isn't just a mirror, it's a password, a master key that activates access to synchronicity, clarity, and direction. Things the rational mind cannot force. When you feel something deeply and truthfully, even if you can't explain it, the field begins to rearrange itself. And this is when the signs begin to appear. But pay close attention. They're not flashing lights in the sky. They're subtle. Shifts in timing, repeating symbols, delays that protect you, invitations that don't make sense until they do. They're not external magic tricks. They're internal confirmations. This brings us to the second pillar of the code. Perception. Because everything you feel passes through a filter. And that filter is made up of how you see the world, or more precisely, how you learn to see it. If you grew up believing the world is unsafe, even acts of kindness may feel suspicious. If you were taught love must be earned, every silence might feel like rejection. But when you start to clean that lens, to perceive the perception itself, something profound happens. Reality doesn't just change on the outside, it begins to reveal itself on the inside. Like entering a dimly lit room you've grown used to and suddenly someone turns on the light. Everything was there all along. You just didn't see it. Not because it was hidden, but because you were vibrating at a different level of awareness. Now we enter the third and most delicate layer, meaning. The way you interpret what happens to you defines the vibrational imprint that experience will leave on your field. The same event can destroy one person and awaken another, not because of the event itself, but because of the meaning assigned to it. And here lies a quiet revelation. The code responds more to the internal narrative than to the external event. The universe echoes the story you tell about your experience, not just the experience itself. This is why two people can live similar situations and end up in completely different timelines. One sees punishment, the other sees a sacred reroute. So what about you? How have you been interpreting the cycles in your life? Are you seeing failure where realignment is happening? Calling something bad luck when it was actually protection? Fighting what may be trying to recalibrate your internal compass? Nothing repeats itself without purpose. The field doesn't punish. It mirrors. And if something keeps returning, it may not be because you're stuck, but because your way of feeling, perceiving, or giving meaning hasn't shifted yet. When you recalibrate these three, emotion, perception, and meaning, life begins to flow. But remember, this isn't about toxic positivity or repeating empty affirmations. It's about resonating with deeper truth, choosing new lenses, reconnecting with the part of you that may have gone quiet, not out of weakness but out of defense. Piano note. A breath. If you've made it this far in the video, I want to invite you into something more than content. I want to invite you into frequency, into community, into remembering together. So if this is resonating with something deep inside, if you're feeling a familiar but forgotten pull, let this be your first act of alignment. Subscribe to this channel. But don't do it just for more videos. Do it because you're ready to return to the field, to live from coherence, not noise, to become aware of the patterns before they become problems, To walk with others who are also awakening to what they've always known, but couldn't yet name. And more than that, I want to hear from you. Genuinely. In the comments, share something that once seemed random, but later revealed itself to be a sign. It could be a number that kept appearing, a dream, a stranger's sentence, a perfect delay. Whatever it was, tell us, not for attention, but to awaken remembrance in you and in those who will read your words. When you share a story like that, you don't just express, you activate. Your words become frequency, and your memory becomes a mirror for someone else to see themselves. So, what sign has the universe whispered to you lately? Everything you've lived until now has created a vibrational archive within you, a kind of energetic memory bank, not stored in your brain but in your field. These are not just emotional scars or mental stories. They are patterns, self-repeating loops that exist not to punish you, but to awaken you. They replay until you stop reacting and begin creating. Most people think they're stuck in time, but they're really stuck in frequency. See, energy doesn't just flow, it orbits. Unresolved emotions loop back like magnetic echoes. A belief you held when you were 8 years old about love, safety, worthiness might still be shaping the reality you see at 38. Why? Because beliefs don't age, they resonate. And if the resonance hasn't been transmuted, the pattern keeps surfacing, wearing different masks, speaking with different voices, but always carrying the same lesson. But here's the powerful truth. You are not your pattern. You are the one who has the power to recognize it and redirect it. And that process begins not with logic, but with presence. When you begin to slow down enough to observe your own patterns, not to judge them but to meet them, a transformation begins. You start seeing how your mind reacts on autopilot. You notice the emotion before the thought. You feel the tightening in your chest, the heat in your stomach, the stories racing in your head, and you don't push them away. You meet them. This is not spiritual bypassing. It's vibrational intimacy, because when you can be fully present with the echo of an old pattern without feeding it, you begin to dissolve its gravitational pull. That's not metaphor. That's mechanics. Attention is energy, and energy either feeds or dissolves. When you meet a pattern with presence, not resistance, not distraction, you begin to unbind its frequency from your field. And that's where space opens. But space for what? For activation. The soundscape opens. Wind. A quiet hum begins to emerge, steady and strong. You carry within you a set of internal centers, not just metaphysical ideas, but real energetic zones that affect how you feel, how you act, and how you manifest. These are not just chakras, as some systems call them. They're vibrational nodes, power points where intention meets biology, where soul meets body, where the field becomes form. Let's start at your base, a center not of fear, but of foundation. This is your connection to rootedness, to physical presence, to the felt sense of I exist and I belong. When this center is blocked, you feel untethered, constantly seeking, restless, insecure, even in places that should feel safe. But when it's open, you move through life with grounded confidence. You don't just wish to create, you know you can build. You stop waiting for permission. You begin to lay bricks. Higher up, near your center line, is a vibrational engine of emotional alchemy. Not the heart per se, but the frequency of resonance. This is where you magnetize. When this zone is open, your emotions become clear signals, not just reactions, but invitations. You begin attracting people, opportunities, and timing that match the clarity of your inner coherence. Love doesn't just come from others, it radiates through you. Further up, near the center of your inner vision, is the zone of perception, the eye behind the eyes. Here, thought stops being just thought and becomes direction. Imagination is no longer fantasy, it becomes blueprint. When this center is activated, you don't just daydream, you see. You read energy, You trust intuition. You stop doubting your guidance. You remember how to steer. And finally, near the crown of your being is the gateway to integration. The place where you stop asking, "What do I need to do?" and begin remembering, "What do I already know?" This is where time softens, where striving dissolves, where you feel for a moment or a lifetime that you were never disconnected, only asleep. When this zone opens, you don't escape the world. You embrace it differently. Each of these centers, foundation, resonance, vision, integration, are not isolated. They are harmonics. When one is out of tune, the others compensate. But when all four begin to align, you don't just feel better. You become powerful. Not in an egoic way, but in a clear, calm, coherent way. You begin to flow, to attract, to direct energy with your attention and emotion. You become a living, breathing expression of the field, awake, present, and magnetic. And the best part? You don't need to master all of this at once. You just need to begin, to sit with your breath, to listen without rushing, to ask yourself without force, which center in me needs to wake up today? You might feel it as a tightness in your body, a dream that won't leave you, a conversation that stirred something deeper. Whatever it is, follow it. It's your field speaking, and it's always been speaking. All you need to do now is listen. You were taught that time is linear, that it moves forward always, that the past is behind you, fixed, that the future is ahead, uncertain, that the present is all you really have, and even that is slipping away with every tick of the clock. But what if all of that was a misunderstanding? What if time isn't a line you're walking, but a web, a living multi-dimensional field, and you are not drifting through it, you are selecting it? Because time, as you've been told, is not absolute. It's not a river that flows regardless of your actions. It's a vibration. And you, through your emotional state, your dominant focus, your inner alignment, are choosing your coordinates inside that vibrational field. Not once, but constantly. What you call the past is not gone. It's encoded, echoing. It exists as frequency in your field, not just in memory, but in energetic signature. That argument you replay over and over, that regret that still stings, that version of you from years ago you haven't fully forgiven, they're still active, still vibrating, still informing the choices you make, the people you attract, the outcomes you repeat. But here's the key. The past isn't a prison, it's a palette. The moment you change the way you relate to a memory, not just logically but emotionally, the field begins to shift. The loop softens, the emotional residue dissolves, and suddenly you are no longer reacting from the vibration of what happened. You are responding from who you've become. That's how you begin to collapse timelines. Now, the present, the now, is not just a fleeting second. It is a portal, a meeting point of all frequencies, a throne of choice. It is the only place where reality actually bends, and that's why most people avoid it. Not consciously, but emotionally. Because being fully present is powerful, and power requires presence. In the present, you stop running from the past and stop chasing the future. You enter stillness. You become cause instead of effect. Most people live rehearsing yesterday or anticipating tomorrow. That's why they feel anxious, because their energy is not here. But when you truly root into presence, not numbing, but listening, the field responds instantly. Intuition sharpens. Manifestation accelerates. Clarity emerges. You stop being someone who reacts and become someone who chooses. Now let's talk about the future. You've been conditioned to think of it as an unknown place, a destination you're heading toward. But that's not how the field works. The future isn't a fixed outcome. It's a quantum range of possibilities, all coexisting in the now, like channels on a radio dial. And the frequency you are embodying in this moment is the selector, not your wishes. not your vision board, your vibration. So when you live in fear, you resonate with timelines that reflect it. When you anchor into gratitude, possibility, inner trust, you align with futures that carry that frequency. You're not predicting the future, you're vibrationally matching one of many available outcomes. And here comes the deepest layer, the one beyond the clock, the timeless. There is a place within you and around you that does not obey chronological time. It's the space accessed in deep meditation, in altered states, in dreams where hours feel like seconds. It's the place where past, present, and future collapse into now. This is the 0 point, the still center of the wheel, the source of all versions of you. And from here, everything becomes available. Healing is instant. Insight arrives without asking. Manifestation feels like memory. Time bends, not through effort, but through stillness. This is not science fiction. It's the science of awareness. The more you return to this still point, even for seconds at a time, the more you begin to experience time differently. Days stretch, moments deepen, you no longer feel behind, because you understand that life is not a race, it's a rhythm, and you are the rhythm keeper. So how do you begin to access this timeless state? Not by doing more, but by choosing differently. Pause more often, breathe with attention, let go of needing to figure everything out. Begin to feel before you speak. Notice the way your body reacts before your mind catches up. And most of all, choose to be here, fully. Not as a concept, but as a practice. Time is not the enemy, it is the mirror. You are not behind. You are right on time, the time your soul chose to remember. So here you are, on the other side of remembering. Not just understanding these layers of emotion, perception, time, and vibration, but beginning to feel them as something real, tangible, present in your breath, your spine, your thoughts. This is no longer philosophy, it's lived experience. But now the question becomes, what will you do with this awareness? There comes a point on every path where knowing is no longer enough, where insight asks to become action, where remembrance calls to become rhythm, and where vibration, if sustained, becomes creation. Because the universe isn't listening to your words, it's responding to your frequency. Not occasionally, not selectively, constantly. That's the real secret. Reality isn't created once. It's being updated with every breath, every belief, every internal response you carry into the next moment. The version of you that watches this video today is not the same one who started. Something shifted, and that shift isn't just internal, it's vibrational. It begins to affect the field, and from here you have a choice, to carry this awareness like a treasure in your pocket, or to become the embodiment of it in motion. So what does that look like? It means becoming aware of how you respond to life, in the little moments, not just the big ones. When a delay shows up, when an emotion rises unexpectedly, when you feel the pull to react the way you always have, that's your invitation. That's the gate. That's your old pattern asking, "Are we still doing this?" And your new self replying, "No, we're creating something else now." It also means refining your focus, choosing where your attention goes, knowing that attention is fuel, and where your energy goes, reality grows. So you become more intentional, less scattered. You stop watering the seeds of lack, fear, doubt, not because you deny their existence, but because you've remembered they're not in charge anymore. Most importantly, it means you no longer seek permission, not from the system, not from the past, not from the voice that says you're not ready yet. You are ready. Because readiness isn't about having all the answers, it's about choosing presence over paralysis. You begin to walk with a quieter mind, a more honest heart, a deeper breath, and the field begins to recognize this. It meets you with timing, with resonance, with clarity. Not because you forced it, but because you matched it. And this is how creation becomes effortless. Not because it lacks challenge, but because it is aligned. So now, as we close this chapter, I want to offer you something beyond a simple farewell. I want to extend an invitation, one that only you can answer. If something in this video touched a part of you that had been quiet for too long, if you felt like you weren't just watching but remembering, then this is your place. This is your signal. Subscribe to this channel not just to support the content, but to anchor the frequency, to make this remembrance part of your rhythm, to join a field of others who are walking the same spiral, each in their own way. This isn't just a channel. It's a living archive of vibration, of activation, of return. And now I'd love to hear from you. Yes, you. Share in the comments. What moment, phrase, or feeling in this video spoke directly to your soul? What did it awaken in you? Or maybe, what did it soften? You don't have to explain everything, just speak from the place that knows. Your story, your reflection, your insight. It doesn't just belong here. It builds this community. Because your truth is the bridge someone else didn't know they needed to walk across. We are not here to be perfect. We are here to be real, to vibrate truth, to co-create timelines that our old selves could barely imagine. So breathe, stay open, and let this not be the end of a video, but the beginning of a new way of being. Welcome to the field.